This isn't just a story. It's what truly happened to me. They thought they had buried me, that an old man like me, after 75 years on this earth, would simply fade away. But the moment Kalen Voss looked me in the eye and delivered the fatal blow, a fire ignited in my soul, a blaze that had been dormant for decades. He underestimated the tenacity forged in me over a lifetime of building, of fighting, of never giving up. He thought he had won. He was terribly, terribly wrong. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. The oak door of the boardroom, usually a symbol of my authority, felt like a guillotine blade descending. Kalen Voss, my protégé, my chosen successor, stood before me, his face a mask of practiced regret, but his eyes, if you look closely enough, glinted with the hunger of a predator. "Silas," he began, his voice smooth as polished riverstone, "this isn't easy to say, but the board, after much deliberation, has decided it's time for a change in leadership." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. It was August 14th, a sweltering Tuesday in Atlanta, Georgia. The skyline outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, usually a source of pride, seemed to mock me. The gleaming towers of Ethel Solutions no longer mine. My company, my life's work. I remember the exact moment Kalen had first walked into my office. Barely 25, fresh out some Ivy League program, brimming with an almost reckless confidence. It was over 30 years ago. I'd seen a spark in him then, a drive that reminded me of my younger self. Back then, Ethel Solutions was just a fledgling operation, a small team of engineers and dreamers crammed into a rented office space in Midtown. We designed bespoke automation systems for manufacturing, a niche market that required precision, innovation, and an almost obsessive attention to detail. I'd founded it with nothing but a wild idea, a patent for a specialized robotic arm, and a loan from my fiercely supportive, now long-departed, wife, Ilara. Her memory was a comforting anchor, even now. She believed in me when no one else did, pouring her own savings into my nascent vision. She'd made me promise to never give up, no matter what. That promise had been the bedrock of Ethel, carrying me through countless late nights, near bankruptcies, and a cutthroat world of industrial automation. From those humble beginnings, we'd grown. Bit by bit, contract by contract, we expanded. We acquired smaller companies, developed groundbreaking AI-driven logistics platforms, and carved out reputation as the industry's quiet innovator. Ethel Solutions wasn't just a business. It was a testament to Ilara's faith and my unwavering resolve. We had over 3,000 employees across 4 continents, with our flagship headquarters now a sprawling campus on the northern outskirts of Atlanta, crowned by this very skyscraper in the heart of the city. Kalen, initially, had been a godsend. He possessed a sharp mind for strategy and a natural charisma that complemented my more reserved, technical nature. I saw him not just as an employee, but as a son I never had. I mentored him, shared my vision, my struggles, even my personal vulnerabilities. I trusted him implicitly, gave him more power, more responsibility than anyone else, groomed him to eventually take the reins. He rose through the ranks with astonishing speed, head of R&D, then chief operating officer, then president. Every step of the way, I cheered him on, proud of the man he was becoming, proud of the future I believed he would secure for Ethel. But as he ascended, something shifted. It was subtle at first, like a faint tremor before an earthquake. His suggestions, once collaborative, became more assertive, less open to debate. He started holding private meetings with board members, conversations that excluded me. When I'd inquire, he'd brush it off with a smile, just getting a feel for the landscape. Silas, making sure everyone's aligned. I dismissed my unease, chalking it up to the natural evolution of a leader finding his voice. I believe he was simply asserting his authority in preparation for the day I would eventually step down, a day I had been contemplating for a while, but certainly not in this manner. Then came the whispers, from junior executives, from longtime managers who had seen Ethel through its leanest years. Kalen saying you're losing your edge, Silas. He implied you're too slow, too traditional. He's pushing for a complete overhaul of our core technology, claiming your designs are obsolete. Each whisper was a pinprick, harmless on its own, but collectively they formed a chilling tapestry. I confronted Kalen, not with anger, but with concern. Is everything all right, son? I'm hearing things. Rumors. He looked genuinely hurt, almost offended. Silas, how could you think that? Those are malicious fabrications. Someone's trying to drive a wedge between us. You built this. You are Ethel. I'd never disparage you. He even teared up, a master manipulator playing the victim. Foolish old man that I was, believed him. I offered him my reassurance, told him we'd face these rumors together. Now, standing in the very room where I'd celebrated countless victories, where I'd made impossible decisions that shaped the lives of thousands, the truth hit me with the force of a wrecking ball. The tears, the hurt look, the reassurances, it was all performance. Kalen had been systematically poisoning the well, undermining my authority, painting me as an aging relic incapable of leading a modern tech company. He had convinced the board, many of whom were newer additions, brought in by Kalen himself, that I was a liability, a sentimental attachment holding Ethel back from its true potential. Rhiannon Vance, the stern-faced general counsel, usually a woman of few words, spoke next, her voice devoid of emotion. Silas, the board has voted unanimously. We appreciate your decades of service, your foundational contributions to Ethel Solutions. However, effective immediately, Mr. Voss will assume the role of Chief Executive Officer. You will be offered an honorary Chairman Emeritus title, with a generous severance package and seat on the advisory board. Unanimously, the word echoed in the cavernous silence of the room. Not a single dissenting vote. Even Breckenshaw, my longtime CFO, a man I consider friend, sat there, his gaze fixed on the mahogany table, refusing to meet my eyes. Betrayal has a distinct taste, bitter, metallic, like blood in your mouth. My 75-year-old body, usually resilient, felt suddenly heavy, ancient. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and I gripped the back of my chair to steady myself. Unanimously, I managed, my voice a gravelly whisper. After 47 years of my life, every drop of my sweat, every ounce of my ingenuity poured into this company. You're telling me not when you stood up for me? Not one. Kalen stepped forward, a picture of faux concern. Silas, please. This is for the good of Ethel. The market is changing. We need aggressive, forward-thinking leadership. You've earned your rest. Rest. The word was a slap in the face. I didn't want rest. I wanted to build, to innovate, to lead. My mind was as sharp as it ever was. My vision for Ethel's future was clearer than any of theirs. They were mistaking age for decrepitude. You speak of market changes. I retorted, finding a sliver of my old fire. But you forget who navigated those changes for decades. Who took us from a garage operation to a global powerhouse. Who saw the potential in AI before it was a buzzword. You, Kalen, are simply standing on the shoulders of a giant, and you're about to kick him off. A flicker of annoyance crossed Kalen's perfect face, quickly replaced by his usual placid demeanor. Silas, let's not make this harder than it has to be. We've arranged for your personal effects to be packed and sent to your residence. Your company car will be returned. Access to all company systems will be terminated by end of day. The clinical efficiency of it all was chilling. They had planned this down to the minute. My office, filled with mementos, awards, photos, a lifetime of memories, was already being dismantled. The thought of strangers pawing through my life, boxing it up like so much discarded junk, ignited a cold fury within me. So that's it then? I asked, my voice rising. No discussion? No chance to defend myself? Just a summary execution? Rhiannon cleared her throat. The decision has been made, Silas. Any further protest will be unproductive. I looked around the room, at the faces of the people I had hired, mentored, and in some cases, saved from professional ruin. Brecken still avoided my gaze. Rhiannon was impassive. The other board members, mostly younger, looked uncomfortable but resolute, having clearly been swayed by Kalen's narrative. And Kalen, my betrayer, stood there, radiating a smug satisfaction barely concealed by his feigned regret. He even had the audacity to offer me his hand. "Silas, I wish you all the best. I truly do." I stared at his outstretched hand, then back into his eyes. The hunger was unmistakable now, the triumph undisguised. My own hand remained clenched at my side. "You'll regret this, Kalen," I said, my voice low, laced with promise. "Every single one of you. You think you've won? You've only just begun to understand what you've unleashed." I turned without another word, my legs surprisingly steady despite the earthquake rumbling through my core. I walked out of that boardroom, past the hushed administrative assistants, down the gleaming corridor, and into the elevator. The ride down felt like an eternity, each floor a descent into a new, terrifying reality. The weight of 47 years of dedication, of love, of sacrifice, pressed down on me. I saw my reflection in the polished steel doors, an old man, weary, defeated. But beneath the weariness, something flickered, a stubborn, unyielding spark. When I stepped out onto the bustling streets of Peachtree Street, the Atlanta heat hit me like a physical blow. The cacophony of traffic, the endless stream of hurried pedestrians. It all seemed distant, unreal. I felt untethered, a ghost in my own city. My driver, a kind man named Elias, waited patiently by the company car, a sleek black sedan that suddenly felt foreign. "Everything all right, Mr. Thorne?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. He'd been with me for 15 years. I forced a weak smile. "Just a long meeting. Elias, take me home." The drive back to my quiet suburban house in Sandy Springs felt like a funeral procession. My house, once a sanctuary, now seemed too large, too empty. Illyria's scent, faint but persistent, still lingered in the air, a cruel reminder of what I had lost and what I was losing. I walked to familiar rooms, each piece of furniture, each framed photograph, a silent witness to a life well lived, a legacy now stolen. The phone rang incessantly, but I ignored it. I knew it would be reporters, industry analysts, concerned colleagues who were now scrambling to understand the sudden, seismic shift at Ethel Solutions. I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to feel the raw, unfiltered agony of betrayal. Hours later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I sat in my study, the room where I had drafted countless patents, planned expansions, and celebrated successes. My laptop, usually a portal to the world of Ethel, now felt like a relic. I turned it on anyway, my fingers trembling slightly as I navigated to a news channel. And there he was, Kalen Voss, standing on a makeshift podium in front of the Ethel Solutions headquarters, flanked by the very board members who had just orchestrated my downfall. He looked confident, radiant, a true visionary leading his company into a bold new era. His voice, amplified by loudspeakers, carried across the airwaves. "Today marks a pivotal moment for Ethel Solutions," he declared, a triumphant smile gracing his lips. "We are embracing the future with renewed vigor, shedding outdated methodologies, and pioneering advancements that will redefine our industry. We wish Silas Thorne all the best in his well-deserved retirement." Retirement. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. He was painting me as a doddering old man, gently put out to pasture. He was rewriting my history, erasing my contributions, laying claim to my legacy. The sheer audacity, the brazen disrespect, pierced through the layers of my shock and grief. As Kalen continued his speech, rattling off plans for new initiatives, aggressive market expansions, and a leaner, more agile Ethel, a cold, hard resolve began to crystallize within me. The vulnerability, the despair, the old man's weariness. They receded. In their place, a dangerous calm descended. I watched his confident smile, his triumphant gestures, and a singular thought, clear as a mountain spring, formed in my mind. He thought he had retired me. He thought he had won. He had no idea the fire he had just stoked in the heart of an old man. I wouldn't just take back the company. I would dismantle his empire, piece by agonizing piece, and make sure he understood the true cost of betraying Silas Thorne. This wasn't retirement. This was war. The taste of ash lingered, not just metaphorically, but a dry, bitter film on my tongue from the hours of seething silence. I hadn't slept, not truly. The news reports had played on a loop in my mind. Kalen Voss triumphant, declaring his reign. Well-deserved retirement. He'd sneered through the screen. My retirement. My 75 years of building, innovating, dreaming, reduced to a polite dismissal. Dawn broke over Sandy Springs, painting my bedroom window in a bruised purple and gray. The familiar scent of Alara's lavender sachet, tucked into my pillowcase years ago, usually brought a pang of gentle sorrow. Today it felt like a spur. I looked at her framed photograph on my nightstand, her smile serene, her eyes filled with that unwavering belief she always had in me. Never give up, Silas, she'd said 1,000 times. Never let them break your spirit. I closed my eyes, and the old man's weariness, the sting of betrayal, began to recede, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. Kalen thought he'd broken me. He thought he'd put me out to pasture. He had forgotten one crucial thing. A lifetime of fighting to build Ethel solutions hadn't just given me callous hands and a keen mind. It had forged a will of tungsten. This wasn't just about Ethel anymore. This was about principle, about justice, about fulfilling a promise to a woman who had better everything on me. This was war. And in war, you don't just fight to win, you fight to decimate. My first order of business was to secure my perimeter. Kalen was a shark, and he'd be looking for any lingering scent of blood. He'd cut off my access to Ethel's servers, my corporate email, my company phone. But I wasn't an idiot. I had my own digital life, carefully segregated. I spent the morning changing every password, reinforcing two-factor authentication on personal accounts, and transferring critical personal files from cloud services to an encrypted external drive. I even went so far as to physically wipe my old personal laptop. Better safe than sorry. My home network, once a casual convenience, now felt like a potential vulnerability. I needed to go dark. The house, once a comforting refuge, now felt exposed. Every smart device, every connected appliance was a potential ear or eye. I systematically unplugged them, one by one. The silence that followed was unnerving, but also liberating. I wasn't just cutting ties with Ethel. I was severing the digital umbilical cord that had made my life so convenient and now so vulnerable. This was a return to basics, to the analog world where whispers were harder to intercept. My old detached garage, a dusty repository of forgotten projects and Alara's gardening tools, suddenly presented itself as a sanctuary. It was far enough from the main house, had its own power, and with a bit of elbow grease, could be made secure. This would be my first command center, my war room. I dragged out an old workbench, cleared away decades of clutter, and started envisioning the setup. I'd need a truly air-gapped system, no Wi-Fi, no internet connection, for sensitive planning. An old desktop computer, one I'd built myself for fun years ago, sat gathering dust in a corner. It was perfect. As I worked, hauling old equipment, cleaning and envisioning the space, I allowed myself to process Kalen's public performance. His plans for aggressive market expansions, shedding outdated methodologies, and a leaner, more agile Ethel. I knew what that meant. It meant dismantling my legacy, selling off the projects I cherished, and likely laying off the loyal employees who had been with Ethel for decades. It meant consolidating power, stamping out any lingering dissent. He was doing exactly what I would have done, but for entirely different reasons. Not for growth, but for ruthless dominance. My mind, usually a whirlwind of innovation, now meticulously cataloged Kalen's likely next moves. He'd want to appear strong, decisive. He'd make a big splash, a controversial acquisition, or a bold divestiture. He'd put his own people in key positions, purging any perceived threats. The board, those spineless opportunists, would fall in line, eager to protect their own interests, especially Brecken Shaw and Rhiannon Vance. Brecken, my supposed friend, who couldn't even meet my gaze. Rhiannon, the general counsel, whose impassive face hid the machinations beneath. They were Kalen's enforcers, his facilitators. I needed help, not just brawn, but brains. I was an old man, and while my mind was sharp, the world of information warfare had evolved. I needed an edge, a ghost in the machine. My thoughts turned to Orioncroft. Orion was a prodigy, a cybersecurity wizard I'd hired straight out of Georgia Tech a decade ago. He was brilliant, eccentric, and fiercely independent, with a moral compass that pointed due north, regardless of corporate winds. He'd left Ethel 3 years ago, fed up with what he called the creeping ethical decay he saw taking root under Kalen's increasing influence. He'd gone off-grid, buying a secluded cabin deep in the Appalachian foothills near Ellijay, Georgia, where he reportedly lived off the land and coded obscure open-source projects. He owed me nothing, but I had always treated him with respect, fostering his genius, shielding him from corporate politics. He was my best shot. I knew getting to Orion would be a challenge. He distrusted technology, especially anything connected to the grid. I needed a secure, analog approach. I picked up my old flip phone, a relic I kept for emergencies, and dialed Elias. "Mr. Thorne? Are you all right, sir?" Elias's voice was filled with genuine concern. He'd been my driver for 15 years, a quiet man with family support, fiercely loyal. "Elias, I need a favor. A private one. Something off the books." There was a pause, a beat of hesitation. Then, "Anything, Mr. Thorne. You know that. I need you to drive me far north. No company car, no company accounts. Just you and me in your personal vehicle. Cash for gas, cash for your time. No questions asked, just a single destination. Consider it done, sir. When? First light tomorrow. Pick me up at the house, but park a block away. We need to be discreet." "Understood, Mr. Thorne. I'll be there." That night, sleep still eluded me. I sat in my makeshift war room, the old desktop humming softly. I spent hours sifting through old files, patents, long-forgotten project plans. My legacy, every line of code, every schematic, represented a piece of my life, a piece of Alara's dream. Kalen wasn't just taking a company. He was trying to erase a lifetime. The cold fury solidified into a burning resolve. The next morning, Elias pulled up exactly a block away, in his unassuming sedan. I slipped out of the house like a phantom, carrying nothing but a small backpack with essentials and my old flip phone. The drive north was long, winding to the lush green mountains of North Georgia. We passed through small towns, the air growing cleaner, the scent of pine and damp earth replacing the exhaust fumes of the city. I directed Elias off the main highway, onto a series of increasingly narrow, unpaved roads, until we reached a weathered hand-painted sign. "Private. No trespassing." "This is it, Elias. You can wait here. Could be a while." "You sure, Mr. Thorne? This looks pretty isolated." "I'll be fine. Just keep a lookout. And remember, no one knows we're here." He nodded, a silent promise. I pushed through a tangled thicket, following a barely discernible trail, until I saw it. A small, rustic cabin nestled deep within the trees, smoke curling lazily from its stone chimney. Orion's sanctuary. I knocked on the heavy wooden door. Silence. I knocked again, louder. After a long moment, the door creaked open, just a sliver. A single where I peered out. Then the door opened wider. Orion Croft stood there, a shock of unruly dark hair falling over intense blue eyes, his face framed by a scruffy beard. He wore an old flannel shirt and jeans, looking less like a tech guru and more like a mountain man. "Silas," he said, his voice a low rumble, tinged with surprise and suspicion. "What in the blazes are you doing here?" "I need your help, Orion," I stated, cutting straight to the chase. "Kalen Voss," he took Ethel. Orion's eyes narrowed. "I saw the news. Figured you'd finally put yourself out to pasture. Didn't think you'd come crawling out here." There was a bitterness in his tone, a residual anger from his own departure. "He didn't put me out to pasture, Orion. He ripped it from under me. And it wasn't just me he screwed over. It was Ethel. It was everything we built." He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, studying me. "Heard he's already started gutting the R&D division. Shut down Project Nightingale, didn't he? That was your baby. Project Nightingale. My ambitious initiative to develop self-optimizing, adaptive AI for humanitarian logistics. A passion project, years in the making, aimed at using Ethel's tech for good. Kalen always saw it as a money sink. The news hit me like a physical blow, confirming my worst fears. He wasn't just running the company. He was actively destroying its soul. I confirmed, my voice tight. He's making Ethel into something I don't recognize. Something toxic. And I believe he's doing it on the back of something illegal. I need to prove it. And I need your help to do it. Orion pushed himself off the doorframe. A flicker of something. Perhaps curiosity, or even a rekindled sense of justice in his eyes. He motioned me inside. His cabin was Spartan but organized, filled with custom-built computer equipment, radio gear, and stacks of technical books. No internet connection was visible, only air-gap systems and custom-made hardware. "Talk," he said, settling into a worn armchair. "Convince me this isn't just an old man's vendetta." I spent the next 2 hours laying it all out. Kalen's subtle manipulations, the whispers, the unanimous board vote, the clinical efficiency of my ousting. I spoke of Alera, of the promise I made, of the company's true spirit. I spoke of my certainty that Kalen hadn't just convinced the board. He had something on them, something that made them betray me so completely. Orion listened, unblinking, occasionally stroking his beard. When I finished, the cabin was silent, save for the crackling of the wood stove. "So, you want to wage war," he finally said, "against Ethel Solutions, against Kalen Voss, the most powerful man in industrial automation right now. And you want me to be your ghost in the machine." He paused, a slow smile spreading across his face, a glimmer of his old mischievous self. "Sounds like a suicide mission. I'm in." A surge of relief, potent and profound, washed over me. "Thank you, Orion. This isn't just about revenge. It's about setting things right." "Right. So where do we start? You're locked out of everything. Kalen's probably put up digital fortresses around Ethel that make Fort Knox look like a garden shed." "We start with Kalen," I said, a grim determination setting in. "His past, his finances, his associates. Find any anomalies, any weak points. Look into the board members too, Brecken Shaw, Rhiannon Vance. Everyone involved in that vote. Dig deep. I have a hunch Kalen's ambitions aren't limited to just running Ethel. He's got a bigger game." Orion nodded, already tapping away at a customized keyboard connected to a multi-monitor setup that looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. "I'll need some time. Public records, open source intelligence, dark web forums. I can be a ghost, but even ghosts need trails to follow." I stayed with Orion for 2 days, sleeping fitfully on an old cot, observing him work. He was a whirlwind of focused energy, his fingers flying across keyboards, his screens filled with endless lines of code, data tables, and encrypted communications. He was building us a secure network, a communication bridge to the outside world that couldn't be traced back to the cabin. He showed me how to use encrypted messaging apps on a burner phone, how to route communications through multiple servers across the globe, making them virtually untraceable. He was arming me for digital combat. On the 3rd morning, as I prepared to return to Sandy Springs and my new war room, Orion called me over. "Silas, I found something. Not much, but interesting." He pointed to a screen displaying a convoluted financial flowchart. Kalen's personal finances are a labyrinth, but there's a pattern of unusual transfers to an offshore account in the Caymans, a shell company named Cerberus Holdings. It's small, sporadic, but consistent. Started about 6 months ago. Cerberus Holdings, I mused. That's new. Kalen was always meticulous about his personal finances. He wouldn't risk anything like that unless there was a damn good reason. "Exactly," Orion said, his eyes gleaming. "And it gets better. I also found a series of highly unusual, large-scale data accesses on Ethel's internal network. These weren't standard system audits. They were targeted, deep dives into specific project archives, particularly those related to our advanced AI algorithms and, get this, our secure supply chain automation protocols. They happened in the dead of night, outside normal working hours, originating from an IP address within Ethel's own network, but masked, deliberately obscured. When did these accesses occur? I asked, a cold dread coiling in my stomach. The dates align with the start Kalen's offshore transfers, Orion confirmed, pointing to a timeline. and they ramped up significantly in the weeks leading up to your ousting. It was a thread, a thin, almost invisible thread, but a thread nonetheless. Kalen wasn't just consolidating power. He was stealing. He was siphoning off Ethel's most valuable intellectual property, perhaps selling it to a competitor, or worse, using it to build something entirely new, something only he would control. The board's unanimous vote, their sudden complicity, began to make a terrifying kind of sense. As I was about to leave, my burner phone, which Orion had set up for me, buzzed with an incoming message. It was from an unknown number, encrypted, routed through one of Orion's secure channels. Where did this come from? I asked Orion. He frowned, checking his monitors. It pinged through a series of dark web relays. Looks like an anonymous drop. Someone's being very careful. I opened the message. It was short, cryptic. Asterisk Silas. They're not just taking Ethel. They're dismantling it from the inside out. Look into Project Chimera. The real reason for the board's complicity lies in the shadows of its creation. Vigil, asterisk, Project Chimera. The name sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't an Ethel project. Not one I recognized. I looked at Orion, my mind racing. Chimera? I've never heard of it. Orion's eyes widened, a dawning realization on his face. Me neither, and I thought I knew every project in R&D. This is an Ethel project. Silas, this is something else entirely. Something hidden. He quickly typed a few commands, his screens filling with data. Someone just leaked this to you. Someone on the inside who knows exactly what's happening. The message wasn't just a tip. It was a key. A key to a door I didn't even know existed. Kalen wasn't just an ambitious protege. He was a conspirator. Project Chimera. The real reason for the board's complicity. My war had just gotten exponentially more complex and infinitely more dangerous. Find everything you can about Project Chimera, Orion, I commanded, my voice low and steady. Everything. He nodded, his fingers already flying across the keyboard. This is going to be fun. Silas. A real rabbit hole. But if it's as big as Vigil suggests, Kalen Voss just woke up the wrong old man. I left Orion's cabin. The cryptic message burned into my mind. The sun was setting, painting the western sky in fiery oranges and purples, a stark contrast to the cold resolve that now simmered within me. Kalen thought he had won. He thought he had outmaneuvered me. He had no idea that by revealing the existence of Project Chimera, he had just given me the first real target. I wasn't just fighting to reclaim Ethel. I was fighting to expose a shadow. And the thought of what I might find, lurking in those shadows, filled me with a terrifying anticipation. The war had just begun, and the first shot had been fired not by me, but by an anonymous insider. And it pointed to something far, far darker than simple corporate betrayal. The drive back to Sandy Springs from Orion's cabin was a blur. The winding mountain roads, the tranquil forest, the small-town storefronts, they all passed by in a hazy procession, my mind consumed by two words, Project Chimera. Elias, sense of my preoccupation, drove in silence, his glances in the rear-view mirror filled with quiet concern I appreciated. He knew enough not to pry, a quality I valued in a world suddenly brimming with unwelcome questions. When he dropped me a block from my house, as instructed, the late afternoon sun cast long, distorted shadows, making a familiar suburban street feel alien, almost menacing. I slipped inside, the silence of my home now more oppressive than comforting. The disconnected smart devices, the unplugged lamps. They were no longer symbols of security, but stark reminders of the pervasive, unseen network Kalen now commanded. My war room, the old garage, felt like the only place where I could breathe. I powered up the air-gapped desktop Orion had helped me configure. Its old fan whirred into life like a rusty engine. The screen glowed, a blank canvas for the terrifying masterpiece Kalen was painting. Project Chimera. The name alone conjured images of genetic monstrosities, of unnatural hybrids. It couldn't be a conventional Ethel project. My company built industrial automation, AI for logistics, not Chimera. But the anonymous message from Vigil had been explicit. The real reason for Board's complicity lies in the shadows of its creation. I started my own analog research, pulling out old notebooks, Ethel's historical project archives. even my personal journals detailing the company's evolution. My institutional knowledge was vast, encyclopedic. If Chimera had any connection to Ethel's legitimate work, I would find it. I cross-referenced names, dates, budgets, even obscure internal code names. Nothing. No mention of a Chimera project, no related initiatives, no personnel assigned to anything remotely similar. It was as if it existed in a parallel dimension, using Ethel's resources but not as Ethel. Meanwhile, Orion was a phantom, his updates arriving sporadically, encrypted, through the secure channels he'd established. His first message confirmed my suspicions. Chimera is not in any Ethel public-facing, or even deep internal R&D archives, Silas. It's a ghost. But the data accesses I saw, they weren't just IP theft. They were feeding something. Massive datasets on human behavior patterns, demographic analysis, predictive modeling, stuff Ethel had no business collecting in such volume for industrial automation. My stomach churned. Human behavior patterns? Predictive modeling? This was far beyond robotics and supply chains. This sounded like surveillance. Or worse. Orion's next update, 2 days later, sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the cool autumn air now creeping into my garage. Silas, Cerberus Holdings, the shell company Kalen's funneling money into. It's a network, not a single entity. Trace it back through layers of proxies to a dark web marketplace, specializing in predictive AI models and advanced data analytics for strategic influence. Their clients aren't governments or legitimate corporations. Silas. They're private entities, shadow groups, even intelligence outfits operating outside official channels. They're selling control. Control. The word hung in the air, a poisonous vapor. Kalen wasn't just stealing Ethel's technology. He was weaponizing it. He was using Ethel as a front, a legitimate face for an operation that traded in the most dangerous commodity of all. Influence over minds, over markets, over nations. Project Chimera was the engine, Cerberus Holdings a distribution network, and Kalen Voss, my ambitious protégé, was the architect of it all. The scale of his betrayal, of his ambition, was staggering. This wasn't corporate espionage. It was a global power play. And the board members, Breckenshaw, Rhiannon Vance, and the others, they weren't just complicit. They were either active participants, blinded by greed, or they were being blackmailed, their lives and reputations held hostage by Kalen's insidious machine. My focus sharpened, narrowing from the wide lens of corporate betrayal to the pinpoint target of Chimera. This wasn't just my fight anymore. It was a fight for something larger, something I couldn't yet fully grasp. I had to understand Chimera, its capabilities, its reach. But how? I was locked out, isolated. Then a name surfaced in my thoughts. Lyra Finch. Lyra had been my executive assistant for 7 years, starting right out of college. Intelligent, diligent, almost preternaturally organized, she had an uncanny knack for anticipating my needs. She was fiercely loyal to me, but also incredibly naive, trusting. She'd adored Kalen, too, seeing him as a dynamic future of Ethel. She was also someone who, by virtue of her position, would have been privy to a lot of information. Perhaps even things Kalen, in his arrogance, might not have fully hidden from her. I ruled out direct contact immediately. It would be too dangerous for her, and likely for me. Kalen would have eyes and ears everywhere, especially around Ethel. But I needed a glimpse, an unfiltered look at what Ethel had become under Kalen's reign, and perhaps a chance to observe Lyra without putting her at risk. There was a small, unassuming coffee shop, the Daily Grind, just a few blocks from Ethel's headquarters in Midtown. It was my old haunt, a place I'd frequented for decades, often meeting with engineers, investors, even my wife, Ilera, for a quick lunch. Lyra knew I loved their dark roast. Kalen, on the other hand, preferred the more upscale, exclusive cafes, never venturing into the common places. It was a perfect, inconspicuous observation point. The next morning, I drove my own beat-up, nondescript sedan, a relic I kept for nostalgic reasons, into Midtown Atlanta. The traffic was as brutal as ever, the city a hive of relentless activity. I parked several blocks from the Daily Grind, walking the rest of the way, my old bones protesting slightly. The air hummed with the energy of commerce, a symphony I had once conducted. Now, I was just an anonymous face in the crowd. The daily grind hadn't changed. The scent of roasted beans and warm pastries was a comforting balm, a ghost of simpler times. I ordered a black coffee and a plain scone, settling into a booth by the window that offered a clear view of the bustling street and, crucially, a glimpse of the Ethel Solutions Tower gleaming in the distance. I spent hours there, nursing my coffee, pretending to read an old newspaper. I watched the flow of people, the rhythm of the city. I saw Ethel employees, easily identifiable by their corporate badges, streaming in and out of the tower. They looked different, I thought, a little more harried, a little less joyful. The spark I had always fostered, the quiet pride of working for an innovator, seemed diminished. Then I saw her, Lyra Finch. She walked out of the Ethel Tower around lunchtime, not with the usual group of colleagues, but alone. She clutched a small tote bag, her usual vibrant stride replaced by a measured, almost hesitant walk. She looked tired, her usually bright eyes shadowed. She didn't head towards the usual upscale lunch spots Kaylin preferred. Instead, she walked with purpose, directly towards the daily grind. A jolt went through me. Had she known I might be here? Was this a desperate attempt to reach out? My heart pounded with a mixture of hope and fear. She entered the coffee shop, her gaze sweeping the room. For a terrifying moment, her eyes met mine. My breath caught. Did she recognize me? I tried to maintain a neutral expression, an old man enjoying his coffee. Her gaze lingered, a flicker of recognition, or perhaps just curiosity, in her eyes. Then she looked away, ordering her usual chai latte. I watched her from the periphery of my vision. She sat at a small table by herself, stirring her drink, not touching the pastry she'd bought. She pulled out her phone, but didn't seem to be using it. She just stared at it, her brow furrowed, a profound sadness etched on her face. This wasn't the Lyra I knew. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. I decided not to approach her. It was too risky. But seeing her like this, so diminished, solidified my conviction. Kaylin wasn't just destroying my legacy. He was destroying the lives of the people who made Ethel what it was. As Lyra finally gathered her things to leave, I noticed a subtle detail. On her tote bag, almost hidden by a fold, was a small, crudely drawn symbol. A stylized, three-headed dog. Cerberus. My breath hitched. Was it coincidence? Or was Lyra sending a silent, desperate signal? I watched her disappear back into the crowd, the Cerberus symbol a burning question mark in my mind. Just as I was about to leave, my own phone, the burner Orion had given me, vibrated. It was a new encrypted message. Asterisk Silas, I've hit a wall. Chimera is a ghost wrapped in a paradox. The data streams feeding it are massive, but the core processing unit, its actual location, is completely dark. No traceable power signature, no network footprint, nothing. It's like it's running on a whisper in the void. This thing is offline, air-gapped from everything, or it's using some kind of power source or network protocol I've never encountered. This isn't just advanced tech, Silas. This is next-level black box stuff. Kaylin didn't build this alone. He's got a partner, maybe several, with resources far beyond Ethel's. We need to find its physical location. Asterisk. Orion's words confirmed my growing dread. Chimera wasn't just a powerful AI. It was a ghost, untraceable, a phantom weapon. Kaylin had built something truly monstrous, and he had powerful allies. The weight of this revelation pressed down on me. I realized then that my war against Kaylin wouldn't be fought just in the digital realm. I needed to find this black box, this physical manifestation of Chimera. But how? It was hidden, guarded. I left the daily grind, the comforting aroma of coffee now tainted by the metallic tang of fear. The city, once my domain, now felt like a maze, full of hidden dangers. I walked back to my car, my mind reeling, formulating new strategies, new angles. As I approached my sedan, I noticed something amiss. The driver's side window was slightly ajar. I always made sure to roll it up completely. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I cautiously approached, my hand instinctively going in my pocket, though I carried no weapon. I peered inside. Nothing seemed out of place. My glove compartment was closed, the radio off, no visible signs of forced entry. But then I saw it. On the passenger seat, resting innocently, was a single crimson rose. It was perfectly preserved, its petals vibrant, but it wasn't mine, and tucked into its petals was a small, elegant card. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. The card was heavy, expensive paper. No envelope, just a single, perfectly printed word in an ornate, old-world font. Welcome back, Silas. Beneath the word, in the bottom right corner, was a subtle, almost invisible watermark. The three-headed dog, Cerberus. My blood ran cold. Kalen knew. He knew I was back. He knew I was watching. He had been watching me. The rose wasn't a welcome. It was a threat, an unnerving display of his reach. He wasn't just playing corporate games. He was playing with my life. And he had just proven that my perimeter, my supposed sanctuary, was already compromised. The war wasn't just escalating. It had just taken a deeply personal, chilling turn. The crimson rose, an unnerving splash of vibrant life against the muted gray of my car's interior, felt like a punch to the gut. Welcome back, Silas. The elegant script, the Cerberus watermark, Kalen's signature, a chilling declaration of war. He knew. He had been watching. My carefully constructed illusion of invisibility, of operating in the shadows, shattered. My first thought was anger, a hot, searing flame that threatened to consume me. My second was an icy dread. If he could plant a rose in my car, what else could he do? My home, my garage war room, were they compromised? I drove directly back to the house, parking deep in the driveway, away from the street. The rose, still on the passenger seat, felt like a sneer. I didn't touch it. Instead, I grabbed the small, encrypted burner phone Orion had given me and sent a terse message. Asterisk compromised. He knows. Asterisk. Within minutes, Orion's reply pinged back. Asterisk assumed all external comms compromised. Moving to dark channels. Physical security paramount. Check for bugs. Asterisk. I spent the next few hours tearing my house apart. Every room, every nook, every cranny. I hunted for hidden cameras, listening devices, anything that shouldn't be there. I unplugged every remaining smart device, even the digital thermostat. The house fell into a profound, almost suffocating silence, but it was a silence I welcomed. It was a silence I could trust. My garage war room received the same treatment. I swept it with a cheap RF detector I'd ordered online years ago for a hobby project. Found nothing, but still, the unsettling feeling persisted. Kalen had demonstrated his reach. He wasn't just a corporate shark. He was a predator who enjoyed playing with his prey. The Cerberus symbol on Lyra Finch's tote bag gnawed at me. Was it a coincidence? Or a desperate signal? And that anonymous message from Vigil about Project Chimera, hinting at the board's complicity. The pieces were swirling, but the full picture remained agonizingly out of reach. Orion's last message echoed in my mind. Asterisk Chimera is a ghost wrapped in a paradox. The core processing unit, its actual location, is completely dark. No traceable power signature, no network footprint, nothing. This isn't just advanced tech. Silas, this is next-level black box stuff. Kalen didn't build this alone. He's got a partner, maybe several, with resources far beyond Ethel's. We need to find its physical location. Asterisk. If Kalen had partners, if Chimera was truly air-gapped, then digital infiltration alone wouldn't be enough. I needed a physical location. I needed to leverage my unparalleled knowledge of Ethel's forgotten corners, its secret histories. My thoughts drifted to a place Alara had loved, an old decommissioned Ethel research facility nestled deep in the Chattahoochee National Forest, near the small town of Blue Ridge, Georgia. We had acquired it decades ago, a sprawling complex of laboratories and server farms, originally intended for advanced materials research. But the project had been shelved, the facility mothballed, deemed too remote and costly to maintain. Alara, with her love for nature, had personally overseen the landscaping, turning parts of grounds into a sprawling botanical garden. It was a place of quiet beauty, a sanctuary of forgotten dreams. Kalen would see it as irrelevant, a sentimental relic. But to me, it was a place where Alara's spirit lingered, and that was precisely why Kalen might choose it. Hidden in plain sight, far from prying eyes, protected by the very sentimentality he would dismiss. A place I would never suspect him to desecrate. I sent a coded message to Orion through our new, secure channel. Asterisk focus on Blue Ridge facility. Old R&D site, Sector Gamma 7. Check for anomalies, recent power spikes, unusual local traffic, asterisk. Orion's reply came within the hour. Asterisk negative on power spikes, network traffic. It's dark, Silas. Completely. No external footprint. But local land records show a recent, quiet transfer of ownership. Not Ethel, a shell corporation, Gorgon Properties LLC. Registered in Delaware, untraceable. Formed 6 months ago. Same time as Cerberus Holdings. Asterisk. Gorgon. Cerberus. Names from Greek mythology. Creatures guarding the underworld. Kalen. Playing God. The connection solidified my hunch. This was it. I contacted Elias again, using the flip phone. Elias, I need you for another trip. Farther north this time. Blue Ridge. He didn't hesitate. Understood, Mr. Thorne. First light. The drive north was longer, more arduous. The roads became steeper, winding through ancient mountains cloaked in deep green. The air grew crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Elias, as always, was a silent, dependable presence. We left his car in a small, hidden turnout several miles from the facility, camouflaged by dense undergrowth. From there, I continued on foot, carrying a small backpack containing a few tools, the burner phone, and a compact, high-resolution camera Orion had sourced for me. The old access road to the facility was overgrown, barely discernible. Nature was slowly reclaiming what man had abandoned. I moved cautiously, my 75-year-old body surprisingly agile, fueled by a potent cocktail of adrenaline and righteous fury. I recognized the familiar contours of the land, the subtle curve of the forgotten stream, the ancient oaks Alara had insisted on preserving. As I neared the perimeter, I noticed anomalies. The forest floor, though overgrown, showed faint signs of recent vehicle traffic. Not heavy machinery, but enough to indicate regular use. I found discarded cigarette butts, a specific brand Kalen preferred. He was here. The old chain-link fence, once robust, was now rusted and sagging in places, but fresh razor wire had been meticulously strung along its top, glinting malevolently in the filtered sunlight. New, discreet surveillance cameras, small and almost invisible, were mounted on trees at irregular intervals. Kalen had fortified his lair. I found a weak point in the fence, a section obscured by a dense thicket, where the razor wire was less taut. With a pair of heavy-duty cutters I carried, I carefully snipped through the rusted links, creating an opening just wide enough for me to slip through. Each snip was a calculated act of defiance. Inside, the grounds were manicured, surprisingly so, given the remote location. Ilara's botanical gardens, though wilder than she'd intended, were still discernible, a tragic irony. The main building, a sprawling, brutalist concrete structure, loomed ahead, its windows dark and uninviting. This was no abandoned facility. It was a tomb guarding a terrible secret. I knew the layout of the old complex intimately. There was a network of subterranean tunnels and utility conduits beneath the main building, a relic of an original, more ambitious design. If Chimera was truly air-gapped, it would be down there, shielded from all external interference. My target was a rarely used service entrance, tucked away behind an overgrown loading dock. I remember the old keypad code, a combination of Lara's birthday and our wedding anniversary, a detail so personal, so deeply buried in Ethel's past that Kalen would never thought to change it or even discover it. It was a secret I had shared only with Alara, and now, with fate. My fingers, surprisingly steady, punched in the numbers. There was a soft click, and the heavy metal door hissed open. I slipped inside, the stale air thick with the scent of ozone and something else, something metallic and faintly chemical. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the faint glow of my small tactical flashlight. The corridor was long, descending into the earth. The silence was profound, broken only by the echoing drip of unseen water. I moved through the labyrinthine passages, guided by memory, my heart pounding a steady rhythm against my ribs. I passed old storage rooms, decommissioned labs, silent witnesses to Ethel's past. Then I heard it, a low, rhythmic hum, faint but persistent. It grew louder as I approached. I found it, a massive reinforced steel door, unlike anything in the original blueprints. It was new, state-of-the-art, secured by a biometric scanner and a multi-keyed lock. A fortress. But I wasn't trying to get through the main entrance. I remembered a small, concealed maintenance tunnel, accessible only from a ventilation shaft, designed for emergency access to the main power conduits. It was barely wide enough for a man, but it was my only way in. I spent what felt like an eternity navigating the cramped, dusty tunnel, my breath rasping in my chest. Finally, I emerged into a cavernous chamber, a technological marvel humming with an ominous life. Project Chimera. It was immense. A colossal self-contained server farm, bathed in an eerie blue light emanating from thousands of blinking LEDs. Rows upon rows of custom-built servers, cooled by a silent, powerful ventilation system, stretched into the distance. At its heart, a towering, crystalline structure pulsed with an internal light, feeding information to surrounding machines. This wasn't just an AI. It was an intelligence vast and terrifying. On large holographic displays, complex data visualizations swirled. Intricate webs of human social networks, real-time global news feeds, stock market fluctuations, political polls, demographic trends, predictive models of public opinion. It was consuming everything, analyzing everything, and I realized with a sickening lurch, influencing everything. One display caught my eye, a chilling tableau. It showed a map of the United States, dotted with red markers. Each marker represented a target community. Data streams flowed from these markers into Chimera's core, and then, in turn, streams of information flowed out. I zoomed in with the camera, carefully documenting everything. The outgoing streams were subtle. Manipulated news headlines appearing on obscure local news sites, carefully crafted social media posts spreading disinformation, targeted ads subtly shifting consumer behavior, even automated calls mimicking local activists, designed to sow discord or promote a specific agenda. This wasn't just data analysis. This was weaponized persuasion. It was psychological warfare, operating on a scale so vast, so insidious, that its victims would never even know they were being manipulated. It wasn't just predicting human behavior. It was shaping it. And then I saw it. A live feed on one of the displays. Kalen Voss in a sleek, custom-fitted suit, addressing a private, high-stakes gathering of what looked like global power brokers. They were smiling, nodding, mesmerized. Kalen was confidently presenting projected outcomes, detailing how Chimera could optimize market responses, guide public sentiment, and secure strategic political victories. He was selling control, outright, and there beside him were Breckenshaw and Rhiannon Vance, his enforcers, their faces grim but resolute, clearly privy to the full extent of the operation. My blood ran cold. The board's unanimous vote, their complicity. It wasn't just blackmail or greed. They were part of this, profiting from the manipulation of millions. This wasn't just about Ethel. This was about the very fabric of society. I knew I couldn't destroy Chimera from within. Its systems were too complex, too self-contained. Any attempt to tamper with it directly would likely trigger an irreversible lockdown, erasing all evidence. I needed to expose it. I needed to bring Kalen's dark empire into the light. I found a hidden network port, a diagnostic access point I recognized from my old designs. It was air-gapped from the main systems, but designed for emergency data extraction. If I could connect Orion's custom-built data siphoning device, even for a few seconds, he could pull enough forensic data to incriminate Kalen and his co-conspirators. As I worked, my hands steady despite the adrenaline, I heard footsteps approaching. Heavy, deliberate. Too many for just one person. My heart leaped into my throat. Silas, I knew you'd come here eventually. Kalen Voss. His voice, smooth as polished glass, cut through the hum of the servers. He stood at the entrance to the chamber, flanked by two burly armed guards. His eyes, usually masked, now burned with triumphant, predatory gleam. You always were too sentimental, old man, he continued, stepping forward, a cruel smile playing on his lips. This place, your wife's garden, a weakness I learned to exploit. I knew you couldn't resist. You built this monstrosity, Kalen. I countered, my voice low and steady, refusing to show fear. You're selling humanity's free will. You're a monster. He laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. Monster? I'm an architect of the future. Silas, you were stuck in the past, a dinosaur clinging to outdated notions of ethics and integrity. This is the new world. Information is power. Influence is the ultimate currency. And I control the bank. He gestured around the cavernous chamber. Chimera, my masterpiece. It learns, it adapts, it guides. It makes people want what I want them to want, believe what I want them to believe. Imagine the possibilities. Silas. No more messy elections. No more unpredictable markets. Order. Perfect, beautiful order. You call this order? It's slavery. I spat. And it won't last. The truth always finds a way. Not when I control the narrative, he smirked. You really think you could expose me? You're a ghost, Silas. And soon you'll be a memory. He signaled to the guards. Secure him. And make sure he doesn't damage anything. I want to savor this. As the guards moved towards me, I knew my window was closing. I had to act now. I connected Orion's device to the port, triggering a rapid data transfer. A small indicator light on the device blinked furiously, confirming the connection. It was pulling everything it could. Kalen watched, his smile faltering as he saw the blinking light. What is that? What have you done? He snarled, his composure finally cracking. I just sent an invitation, Kalen. I said, a grim satisfaction settling over me, to the world. Your little secret is about to become global news. His eyes widened in a flicker of genuine panic. He lunged for me, but the guards were quicker. They grabbed me, roughly pulling me away from the port. One of them tore Orion's device from the panel, smashing it under his boot. Fool! Kalen roared, his face contorted in a mask of fury. You think that little trinket could do anything? My systems are impenetrable. Air-gapped. You've merely sealed your own fate. Maybe, I conceded, my voice raspy as the guards tightened their grip. But Orion is smarter than you think, and he knows how to follow a trail. At that precise moment, my burner phone, still in my pocket, vibrated. A new incoming message from Orion. Kalen's eyes locked onto the device. What's that? He demanded, snatching from my pocket. He saw the encrypted message, the sender ID, Vigil. His face went pale. Vigil? Who? Before he could finish, the main holographic display, showing Chimera's global influence maps, flickered. The live feed of Kalen's private presentation was suddenly interrupted, replaced by a live news broadcast. A prominent investigative journalist, known for her uncompromising integrity, stood before a microphone, her face grim. Behind her, a screen displayed the Cerberus Holdings logo, flanked by Ethel Solutions' corporate emblem. Tonight, she began, her voice cutting to the hum of Chimera, we expose a scandal of unprecedented scale. A shadowy network, operating under the guise of corporate innovation, has been secretly manipulating global markets, political narratives, and public opinion using a highly advanced, weaponized artificial intelligence codenamed Chimera. Our sources indicate this operation is led by none other than Kalen Voss, the recently appointed CEO of Ethel Solutions, aided by key members of his board, Brecken Shaw and Rhiannon Vance. We have obtained irrefutable evidence, including financial records linking Mr. Voss to offshore shell companies, internal communications detailing the Chimera project's insidious purpose, and even live feeds from within the facility where this AI operates. Kalen stared at the screen, his jaw slack, his face draining of color. The guards, momentarily stunned, loosened their grip on me. No, this is impossible, he whispered, his voice trembling. My systems, my security, nothing is truly impenetrable, Kalen, I stated, pulling free from bewildered guards, especially when you build on a foundation of betrayal. The reporter continued, detailing the specific instances of manipulation, the financial irregularities, the ethical breaches. She showed screenshots of Kalen's private presentation, his own words condemning him. She named the board members, one by one, painting them as co-conspirators. On the screen, a split feed showed a flurry of activity. Financial regulators announcing investigations, law enforcement swarming Ethel Solutions' headquarters in Atlanta, board members being escorted away in handcuffs. The stock market, reacting to the news, plunged Ethel's shares into freefall. The empire Kalen had so ruthlessly built was collapsing live before his very eyes. Kalen stumbled back, his eyes darting from the screen to me, then to the silent, humming machinery of Chimera. His masterpiece, his undoing. The ultimate weapon, now the ultimate evidence. You leaked it, he gasped, his voice hoarse with disbelief and rage. That device, it wasn't just data. It was a trigger. You had an accomplice. A ghost in the machine, Kalen, I affirmed, who understood your vulnerabilities far better than you understood his own. Orion always was meticulous. The reporter concluded her segment, promising further revelations. The screen then flashed to a breaking news alert. International arrest warrants issued for Kalen Voss, Brecken Shaw, Rhiannon Van, and others on charges of fraud, corporate espionage, and conspiracy to commit market manipulation. Kalen looked utterly broken. His carefully constructed world, his arrogance, his certainty of victory, all crumbled in an instant. The smug predator was gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed, terrified man. The guards, realizing the gravity of the situation, looked at each other, then back at Kalen, their loyalty evaporating. They exchanged a silent nod, then turned and fled, disappearing into the tunnels. Kalen was alone. He looked at me, a flicker of something resembling hatred, then despair in his eyes. You ruined everything. You did that yourself, Kalen, I said, stepping closer. You mistook ambition for genius. You confused power with control. And you forgot the most fundamental rule. Never underestimate the old man you try to bury. His shoulders slumped. He collapsed into a nearby chair, burying his face in his hands. The low hum of Chimera a mocking lullaby to his downfall. He was defeated, utterly and irrevocably. Hours later, the facility was swarming with federal agents, led by a stern-faced FBI team. Orion, having remotely guided them to the exact location once the data was secure, watched from a safe distance, a quiet sentinel. I gave my statement, detailing Kalen's manipulations, the Chimera Project, and the board's complicity. The evidence Orion had siphoned, combined with the live footage I had captured with his camera, was overwhelming. Kalen Voss was led away in handcuffs, his once pristine suit now rumpled, his face a mask of utter defeat. As they escorted him past me, his eyes met mine. There was no defiance, no arrogance, just a chilling emptiness. He was no longer the man who had ripped Ethel from my hands. He was a broken shell. The investigation was swift and brutal. Ethel Solutions, once a beacon of innovation, was now embroiled in a scandal that shook the industry. Brecken Shaw and Rhiannon Vance were apprehended, along with several other board members and key executives, their reputations and lives in tatters. Project Chimera was immediately shut down, its terrifying capabilities dismantled, its data wiped. The strategic influence Cerberus Holdings had peddled was revealed as a sophisticated, global disinformation machine. In the aftermath, the fate of Ethel Solutions hung in the balance. It was placed under federal receivership, its assets frozen, its future uncertain. Many called for its complete dissolution, fearing the taint of Chimera. But a core group of loyal employees, those who had seen Kalen's corruption and risked their careers to expose him, I suspected Lyra Finch was among them, perhaps even Vigil herself, rallied, fighting to reclaim the company's integrity, to rebuild Ethel on its original foundation of innovation and ethical growth. I was offered my old position back, an olive branch from the interim board, but I declined. The Ethel I had built, the one Alara had believed in, was gone. It had been twisted, corrupted, and though it was now purged of its poison, the scars remained. My fight was not to reclaim a chair, but to exact justice, and that justice had been served. I retired, truly this time, not put out to pasture by a treacherous protégé, but by choice, with my honor intact. My name was cleared, my legacy restored. The media, once eager to paint me as an aging relic, now hailed me as a visionary who would save his industry from a terrifying threat. I bought a small, secluded cabin in the mountains, not far from Orion's, though still with reliable internet connection. Orion himself, having played a crucial role in the exposure, vanished back into his off-grid sanctuary, a modern-day digital hermit. We exchanged occasional, encrypted messages, a silent acknowledgement of our shared victory. Sometimes, I would sit on my porch, watching the sun set over the ancient mountains, a cup of Alera's favorite chamomile tea in my hand. The quiet solitude was a balm for my weary soul. I had won. Kalen was where he belonged, stripped of everything he valued. My promise to Alera had been kept, but the victory felt incomplete. The chilling resolution lingered, a shadow on my triumph. I had seen the true face of power, the terrifying potential of technology when wielded by ruthless ambition. Chimera was gone, but the idea of it, the blueprints of weaponized persuasion, still existed. Others, more cunning, more discreet, would undoubtedly try to replicate it. The world was a more dangerous place than I had ever imagined, a landscape where truth was a malleable commodity and influence the ultimate weapon. I had fought my war, and I had emerged victorious. But I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that the fight for humanity's free will, for the integrity of truth, had only just begun. And I, Silas Thorne, the old man who refused to be buried, would always be watching. The end,